of all the gin joints in all the towns in all the world, and she walks into mine. They call her Groovie Bean. But she's not just some dame. She's Yvonne Palermo. She does one of them shows on Haggy Shack Radio. So play it again, Sam. Yvonne, he is looking at you, kid.
Salutations and good evening, Haggy Shack Radio listeners. You have just arrived in Groovie Bean territory, the place where seeds grow. We spark change, all us beans here to feed the planet. I am your host, Yvonne Palermo, and thank you for tuning in tonight and joining me on the Groovie Bean journey. It's time to kick off your shoes and dig those toes into Gaia, pour some lavender iced tea goodness, and keep an ear out for those Bigfoot hollers as we dive into another 2-hour show coming to you from the Cascadia Mountains. So, tell your friends, pass on the word, and let's get our awakened family growing. Groovie Bean is every Friday night at 6 p.m. Tonight's show is produced by Haggy Shack Radio. Lovely Miss Colleen Kelly behind the scenes who's snacking on her nutty gzutty health bar, www.haggyshack.com. And tonight's music is by Emma Gold. FullDisclosureNow.com. Want to be a part of the movement? Check it out on 1111, folks. Holy social media pants. You can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, give it a like, Instagram, and YouTube at Groovie Bean, spelled GROOVIEBEAN. My website is a .com now, folks. Woohoo! GroovyBean.com. There you can find the upcoming list of shows as well. Tonight's show, friends out there in Haggy Shack land, yeah, it's pre-recorded. It was the only way to grab our groovy guest today, but feel free to discuss in the chat as you listen. Last but not least, we are a donation station. The sheep don't sleep here in Haggy's house, so if you like what you hear and you want more of it, show the Babylonian lovey-doveys. Click that donate link and follow through. Now, special shout out to Nancy and Walt for the Shungite goodness. Check out their website at www.cosmicreality.net. There you can find all your Shungite glorious needs. Did you know that Haggy Shack has a show schedule? What? Say it isn't so. Yes, it is. Just check it out. The day's show is just a click away. Now, friends, tonight we have a recurring bean on the show. Yes, we do. Mr. Jim Nichols, UFO researcher, illustrator. He will be speaking at MUFON next month, June 25th in Tempe, Arizona. His website is jimnicholsufo.net. His favorite video is Atlantis Rising, which can be found on his website video blog. Again, jimnicholsufo.net. Now, my friends, tonight's guest, very special guest we have tonight. I am so honored to have him on. We have Isaac Weishaupt, website publisher of IlluminatiWatcher.com. Author and independent researcher, Isaac has been on the leading edge of conspiracy theories surrounding the elusive Illuminati. Oh, those naughty biscuits that they are. And its infiltration of the entertainment industry. Using examples of familiar pop culture and works of entertainment, Isaac has been speaking and writing about the occult from a unique perspective that seeks to understand the big agenda while helping others along the way. Isaac has been a featured guest on Richard C. Hoagland's Other Side of Midnight, Sirius XM's The All Out Show, The Higher Side Chats, Freeman Flies the Free Zone, Mark Devlin's Good Vibrations, and many more radio shows and podcasts. His fresh perspective and openly admitted imperfections promotes the rational approach to exploring these taboo subjects and conspiracy theories. Now, folks, listen, I want you to go to Isaac's website. It's www.illuminatiwatcher.com. And I'm going to spell that for you because I know we have some new listeners to the word Illuminati. It's ILLUMINATIWATCHER. He does have published books too, folks. Yes, he does. We have A grand unified conspiracy theory, the Illuminati, ancient aliens and pop culture, sacrifice, magic behind the mic, Kubrick's Code project, yeah, no joke, Alice in Rocky Horrorland, entertainment's pursuit of the transhuman desert apocalypse. So listen, folks, it is time to bring on in Jim Nichols and Isaac Weishaupt. Please come on in, fellas.
Hello.
Hello, Isaac. How are you?
Hi, Yvonne.
Hello, Jim Nichols. So good to have you both on this evening. I'm very excited about the show. And I have to tell you, one of the biggest things here, Isaac, for me too, is you stated in your bio of how you like to help others. And I have to tell you gracious thanks. Upon my awakened journey, a year ago, little under a year actually, is you were one of the first websites I found, and completely, and no pun here, we can all giggle with it, completely eye-opening. So I just again want to thank you because I am honored to have you both on as well, and I'm just so excited about the show. So how are you both doing?
I'm doing very well. That was a very nice intro you gave me there, and I am honored as well to be on your show and to hear that I had some kind of influence on you. That's what my whole aim is to keep things like a simple gateway drug into looking into a lot of these conspiracies by providing some kind of graspable, question mark as to our entertainment, because I feel like most of us can understand some of the more basic ideas and go from there as to how deep people want to look into things. I feel like it's better just to cast that wide net and try to resonate some of these ideas where instead of having people scoff at the allegations of the Illuminati, I'd like them to actually consider it and take a look at the evidence, because like many others, once you start looking into it, you realize that it is all unfortunately true.
Yeah, it's like a holy crapoly moment. You're just like, Jesus, what is going on here? And I want to thank you for doing this service for everybody, because that is what this is. So again, folks, tuning in, www.illuminatiwatcher.com. Now, how you doing, Mr. Nichols?
Very good, thank you, and thank you again so much, Yvonne, for having me join you. It's always a delight to to join you and kick around these interesting ideas and theories and so forth.
Absolutely. So, friends, where would you like to start? Do you want to start with the history of the Naughty Biscuits, the Illuminati?
Yeah, I think that'd be best.
All right.
Especially if some of your listeners are new to this concept.
We do. Yes, we will have some new
idea.
listeners. So please take us in.
Well, I can give you my angle on it, and then I'd love to hear Jim's angle on it, because this is one of the more kind of shadowy realms where we try to pin down the idea of this Illuminati group, and the reason why it's so hard to pin down and point a finger and say, well, this is the guy. It's because they stay concealed from the light. And in my research, I believe the Illuminati is a long line of people who have tried to garner knowledge of, esoteric hidden knowledge from these dark sort of occult forces. And this knowledge is supposedly various things, one of which is the enlightenment of mankind and trying to pursue the idea of self-deification of a man becoming a god in his own right. And this knowledge was handed down through all of these ancient mystery schools and today's secret societies, which we know of as like the Freemasons, for example. So it's not necessarily that the Illuminati are a group that meets up, but it's more of a belief system, and some people subscribe to it, and some people subscribe to pieces of it, and they don't even realize that they are, which is my chief concern, is that our entertainment is leading everyone to believe in these same ideas.
Right.
So that would be, that would be kind of like the rough idea of who is the Illuminati. It's more of what is the Illuminati, and when you research what the Illuminati is and what they believe, you find out that we might all be a little bit Illuminati.
Mr. Nichols is chomping at the bit. Yes.
Chomp, chomp, chomp.
Let him in.
Yeah, that's kind of a nutshell approach to it. I think it's something that actually started out very positive, though. I think that I've been reading Manly P. Hall's book about the history of secret societies, and of course, Manly P. Hall was a 33rd degree Freemason. And he's, the original intent was really to enlighten humans, to discover the God within us, and not so much to become gods, but to liberate us from the illusion of material reality. But unfortunately, these teachings get taken over by ego, and on one level, the teachings can be very liberating and very spiritually uplifting, but it's like it's like the Force in Star Wars. It has a good side and a dark side, and if you use it for your own personal ego gratification, it can become very dark. So that becomes dark black magic sorcery, and I think that Illuminati, as we understand it today, is very ego driven, and it's obsessed with control and power, and sadly that's that's the very dark side of the Force. Mm-hmm. But it's got a yin and a yang. It can be used for positive or negative. And unfortunately, we're seeing it totally dominated by negative right now.
It's interesting that you brought up the Star Wars movie there, because that I was reading somebody's interpretation of the Star Wars was the Egyptian mythology through Star Wars with, was it episode 4, Obi-Wan Kenobi, who represents Osiris, Darth Vader, who represented Set, right? Mm-hmm. And Luke Skywalker represented Horus. I thought, and Yoda. Oh wait, Yoda represented Ra, the primary Egyptian sun god.
Oh, really?
So, very interesting little thing that you brought that up. It just reminded me of that, so I just thought I'd toss that in there.
Yeah, that Star Wars is interesting as well. That's, that whole, I don't know if you've seen some of those articles that I've written about the Kabbalah and the Tree of Life. It's again part of the supposed Illuminati kind of indoctrination system, is this secret teachings of the Kabbalah, and within it, you've got this Tree of Life, which represents the 10 emanations from God, and each one has its own sort of principle and value, and if a practitioner decides to follow up this Tree of Life, they can kind of learn each aspect of themselves, and I agree with Jim's assessment on the Illuminati. That's a great way of putting it. It's a lot of this stuff is very liberating, and like a lot of the New Age beliefs, I studied that stuff for a while, and that was very, very empowering. I found it to be very good stuff. But then when you look deeper into it, some of that stuff does lead you to a dark side, and that's what happens in the Kabbalah Tree of Life when you try to cross through this area they call the abyss in the center, which is got a hidden realm called Dot, D-A-A-T, sometimes spelled D-A-A-T-H. So that's where we might get Darth Vader, Darth Vader, and he's the abyss, the dark side. So,
oh,
very interesting stuff.
That is.
Well, also according to certain Masonic traditions, that they were able to access an extraterrestrial entity or extra-dimensional entity who was called Yoda.
Oh, you're kidding me.
So who was called Yoda, and he was like a little dwarf kind of character or creature. And so it's like, I would say that George Lucas, somewhere along the line, had really done some deep occult research to come up with the Star Wars mythology.
So let me backtrack for a second, because we were talking about the Tree of Life. Isaac, you brought up the Tree of Life. And do you think, so from somebody who's just learning, and how everybody's, awakening and becoming more aware of different symbologies and sacred geometry and the Tree of Life itself, I've seen a few people wearing them on t-shirts and stuff. So for somebody that's just tuning in and going, oh, wait, I'm wearing one of these shirts. What am I wearing? Is this so what would you say to somebody like that?
Well, I think you can, use it for good or bad. Yes. But it seems to me that a lot of this stuff, when you boil it down to the root, you'll find that it's a lot of the same aspects that we find from the other occult teachings, where there's this idea of channeling extraterrestrials and, out of body entities and all this stuff. And when you look at the Tree of Life, there's the one that we all know of, and then there's like this dark side of the Tree of Life, which is the hidden shadow side. And in that you'll find the Klepoth, which are these demons. So you can get so far on the the light side of the Tree of Life, but you can also traverse the dark side to the Tree of Life. And any initiate should know that they need to take part of both and need to embrace both sides of that, the good and the bad, the light and the dark, whatever you want to call it. So to me, it seems like if you are okay with exposing yourself to these dark forces that have much more power than we understand, I mean, go for it. But I wouldn't necessarily try to do it myself.
Right.
Exposing yourself to that level of energy or evil demonic spirits seems dangerous in and of itself. So. Well,
yeah.
Well, especially in our culture, because we have no concept of that, and we have no training to even be aware of it. So to go dabbling into this stuff, like you see so many, Hollywood stars and so forth, it's like it's become real campy to play around with this stuff, and they have no idea how dangerous it is until it's too late.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
The speaking of the entertainment stuff, in that hip hop conspiracy book I wrote, that's part of the chief argument I have, is that these rappers, these musicians, they are channeling different spirits. Some of them, it's the goddess spirit, the goddess archetype of Isis, which is what we see from Beyonce when she talks about how she channels this Sasha Fierce entity.
Yes.
And then later she said that she killed Sasha Fierce and then merged it with this other spirit called Yonsei. And people think that it's kind of, I don't know what you want to call it, kind of part of the show, but it's really not when you see so many of these artists are doing it. They all seem to have these alter egos. Beyonce's got a few. Jay-Z, he talks about getting possessed by the spirits. And these are all like interviews you can find on YouTube.
Oh yeah. I just saw a few, what was that, Kanye, I don't know what he was doing on that video, but, but before we jump into that, because before we talk about the channeling spirits here, would it be okay if we backtrack a bit to where all this, for me, one of the things that was important for me to learn was the roots of this evil, where Aleister Crowley came from, and those, could we talk about that a little bit? Because I do know with the new listeners, when those names come up, I think it's very important for them to know who are these people.
Most definitely. Yeah. Aleister Crowley's he's the guy that sort of changed things and made, there's always been a following of these occult beliefs over time. Aleister Crowley seems to be the most recent, maybe modern day kind of, person that was able to successfully motivate the masses to try this kind of stuff out. And that's why you see his likeness on, the beat. Most people know, like, he's on the Beatles album cover. He's on the back of the Doors album 13. He's, Led Zeppelin is fascinated by him. Jimmy Page bought one of his houses, and so on and so forth. So who is Aleister Crowley? And I know Jim wrote some pretty interesting articles about him, so I'd like to hear his take on it as well. But
absolutely,
Crowley's he's the wickedest man alive, is what they called him. And what he was he was a Victorian era, late 1800s, early 1900s, infamous occultist and ceremonial magician. And what's fascinating is that this guy he was born into a family with money, so he didn't really go through the same kind of struggles that most people do, and he had lots of time on his hands. So he proceeded to accelerate at a high rate of speed through all of these ceremonial magic orders, like the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn or the Ordo Templi Orientis. Mm-hmm. And I believe that the reason why he was kind of raised to the, he kind of went through the ranks so quick was because he was channeling these spirits with ease that most of these occultists were trying to do, and he seemed to be more successful than most. And he was able to channel this spirit called Aiwass, which he interpreted as Lucifer, and this Aiwass character dictated the book of the law, is what he called it, that he wrote. And this book is used as it's basically the Bible of Crowley's religion, called Thelema. And Thelema means will. And you'll see the concept of the true will in modern day. It's playing out today. Aleister Crowley was the one that coined that term, true will. And we've seen it kind of pushed by different, occultists over time, like, the guy that wrote The Alchemist, Paulo Coelho. Paulo Coelho's book, The Alchemist, his main character, Santiago, the whole book is about him pursuing his personal legend. And what that is that's his true will. So, let's cut to the chase here. It's ego. It's like, yeah, right. This is sorcery. He called it will or thelema, whatever, but it's just ego. And the obsession is control over other people, for one thing, and control over physical matter, which is, it's part of the deal. And once you learn the secrets of Kabbalistic magic, and you can exercise your will. Your will does have control to a certain degree over the very fabric of space-time, which is which is ultimately the obsession of the human species all throughout history, to have complete control equal to that of God. And that's what Crowley was all about. And he was a master of Kabbalistic teachings and Kabbalistic magic. And if you look the Book of the Law, he talks about will, and that's all ego. And actually, it was interesting that Adolf Hitler was very much enamored of Aleister Crowley, and Hitler demonstrated the power of his will in launching World War II and his absolute control over taking over France, Poland, Czechoslovakia. That was actually an expression of Aleister Crowley thelema, that I can have this kind of power over my reality. The triumph of the will, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and then speaking of, you make a good point. It boils down to becoming a god on earth, and there's a story, whether it's true or not, I don't know, but I've heard it, that Crowley and another man were walking down the sidewalk. Yes. The other man did not believe that Crowley had these kind of powers that he was claiming, so Crowley all of a sudden kind of started limping really hard on his leg. And the guy, and then he said, look at the guy in front of us that was walking, and that guy all of a sudden started limping the same way. So supposedly,
and then at one point he actually fell down, and he got the guy to fall down.
Oh, okay, yeah. It's very interesting the ideas that seem to work out for this guy, and I believe that a lot of the stuff he claimed really worked out for him, like the idea that he channeled this alien named Lamb. I believe it all happened.
Do you think that Lamb was a gray?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at him, he's got that, elongated sort of skull and the bug eyes and the kind of narrow chin and all that. So,
do you think that maybe Lamb was created by the Nazis?
Well, that's interesting. That's an interesting idea. Well, Lamb was actually there before. I think he was like 1918 is when Crowley channeled him, if I'm not mistaken.
So let me ask this: who taught Crowley?
Crowley learned by, he was reading a lot. He was in all those ceremonial magician groups, the OTO, but then eventually Crowley would turn around and teach them.
Okay.
So it seems to me that, Crowley was successful in channeling these spirits that whispered to him, like Aiwass, who was, I could be messing up my facts, but I know at one point Crowley, I thought he was dictated, Aiwass was actually a kind of a cohort of Horus, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Is that right, Jim?
That was the Aeon of Horus.
Okay.
Crowley married
Mm-hmm.
Edith Rose. What was her name? Anyway, he got married in 1904. And on their honeymoon, he took Rose, his wife, to Cairo, Egypt, where they had a secret ceremony, a private ceremony, inside the Great Pyramid. Or he was trying to contact the gods Isis and Osiris. And the next morning, after they were back in their hotel, first thing in the morning, Rose started to channel these messages from Osiris. And Crowley wasn't sure whether to believe Rose or not, so he took her to the Cairo Museum. And they went through the museum, and they went to this one case called, and it was case number 666. And she pointed to the sculpture that was in the case, and she says, "That's who's talking to me." And it was, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was Horus. And Horus began to chant, or allegedly Horus, this entity, whatever it was, started to channel through Crowley, and that's when he channeled the book, the Book of the Law.
Okay.
That's right.
But Crowley was a very gifted adept who had been trained in the Freemasonry and the Ordo Templi Orientis, and he was able to assimilate this stuff so quickly. And it was never enough. He always wanted to keep pushing the barrier, pushing the limits. And so he essentially kind of created his own occult belief system.
I'm going to pop in here and tell the listeners that you are tuned in to Haggy Shack Radio. Welcome. I am Yvonne Palermo. This is Groovie Bean Friday Night. We are joined by our recurring being, Mr. Jim Nichols. We are talking to our very special guest tonight, Isaac Weishaupt. That's right, www.illuminatiwatcher.com. If you folks want to know the truth and want to wake up and want to learn, that is where you need to go. Now, do not forget, we are a donation station. If you like what you hear and you want more of it and you don't want those sheep to sleep anymore, please donate. And hey, I do have a website, groovybean.com, for our upcoming shows. Now, we're going to pop right back in. We were just discussing Crowley and his wife, Rose. And I wanted to just say, I find it very interesting that Rose was the one that was channeling. And how Crowley kind of jumped on that bandwagon a little bit there. Just saying. So was she channeling because of her female being and her pineal gland?
That's a good question. It kind of blew Crowley's mind because he wasn't. She was not into this stuff at all. But she was kind of in a semi-trance when she woke up, and she started channeling this information, and then eventually Crowley himself started to channel.
And I think Crowley, he kind of rotated through women pretty fast.
Yes.
Okay.
I think he was constantly looking for this embodiment of the whore of Babylon, as he called it, which is which could be the embodiment of Isis on Earth, the goddess.
Well, which is also interesting, and we can't just leave it with Aleister Crowley, because he became profoundly involved with Jack Parsons, who was the creator of the Jet Propulsion Lab in Pasadena, California, which eventually blossomed into the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. So we have a distinct connection from Aleister Crowley to Jack Parsons to Jet Propulsion Lab, JPL, and NASA.
Oh, geez.
So this is where it gets really crazy.
So can I ask you, though, before we jump to the NASA bit, though, because we just touched on Horus, for our listeners, because if they were in Cairo, Rose gets this channeling, Crowley picks up on this, and we're talking about Egyptians here.
Yes.
And we talked about Horus, and we know with symbology how vitally important the Egyptian, the god of the sun, light, sky, war, and protection, all the ancient Egyptian symbols is very important here. So, who is Horus? What does Horus represent?
Well, if you're referring to the ancient Egyptian mythology, Horus was the god who had his moon eye, which is the left eye, ripped out by Set. Well, I mean, first off, there's various kind of interpretations of this, but the one that seems to work mostly with the other research I've found is that they believe Horus had his left eye ripped out by Set. And then Thoth used magic spells of the falcon, which is Phoenix, to reattach it. So the eye of Horus is a symbol of protection, but when you consider the all-seeing eye and all of these various ideas of this occult belief system of the Illuminati, you'll see that the eye represents various things. It goes all the way back to the Nephilim they talk about in the Bible. And the Nephilim were these offspring of these fallen angels. Okay. So supposedly there's this kind of like secret bloodline of people that still have this fallen angel blood within them. And the Watchers were the fallen angels, so the Watchers this is where the idea of the evil eye comes in, right?
Okay.
The reptilians and the archons.
Okay.
And then in the Bible they also claim that, Adam and Eve were confronted by the serpent, and the serpent promised to open up their eyes. And this is a reference to opening up the pineal gland, the third eye. And the third eye is revered by, a lot of these Eastern mystics and such, like in Hinduism, it's this gateway to the higher consciousness and enlightenment. Same goes with Theosophists. But this eye is kind of like the embodiment of all of these ideas. And the ancient Egyptians were just one group of many in this long line of Illuminati occultists. So that's why you hear about the Egyptians, because they were, obviously a great society at the time. So,
well, if you dig back even further, Manly P. Hall says the Egyptians actually, their occult teachings actually came from Atlantis. They were predated by Atlantis, and that the Egyptians also embraced black magic. And that's where a lot of this stuff became perverted. But getting back to Horus is the son of Isis and Osiris. And when Rose Edith Kelly received this channeling after they had this ceremony in the Great Pyramid, Rose mysteriously proclaimed that the equinox of the gods has come, and that the age of the aeon of Horus had begun, and it was Aleister Crowley who was to introduce this age of Horus into 20th century culture.
Okay.
And so that, like it or not, that seems to be what has unfolded here. And you see, that's what, everywhere you look now, you see the Eye of Horus everywhere.
Right.
You remember, Yvonne, we were at the airport restaurant, and the young lady who served us
my Lord,
was
have mercy.
wearing all kinds of occult jewelry and so forth, and she had no clue.
No clue. It even went further than that, but I won't. Yes. I won't bring that up here. Yeah.
But suffice to say, here we have a generation of children out there who are sporting this, all the trappings of the Aeon of Horus, and they have no clue what they're doing.
Yeah, I've got a quote here that I keep handy that supports this idea of, so like we all know that the trend in society right now is to get away from organized religion, particularly Christianity, and to kind of go into a new age of people being what they call, spiritual, which is fine and all. I'm not here to thump the Bible and say everyone will be a Christian, but
right.
it's my belief system, and I'm okay with other people not being that. So let me just get that out of the way. But Aleister Crowley, he wanted to destroy Christianity and organized religion. Mm-hmm. And in the Book of the Law, he wrote this quote talking about this Aeon of Horus that Jim was just speaking of. Mm-hmm. And in it says, in this Aeon, the emphasis is on the self or will, again, the will being that thelema we were talking about earlier, mm-hmm. not on anything external, such as gods and priests. So what this means is this new age mm-hmm. is a time of the self-realization of, finding the path to kind of self-deification. And that's what we see in this new age with all the social media tools, with the unprecedented amount of narcissism found in Facebook and Twitter.
Yes.
You got YouTube videos where these kids are like, they're doing very dangerous things, yes. hurting themselves, and they think it's funny because they're concerned with the popularity behind it. Mm-hmm. You talk to anyone, you ask them if they're religious, and it seems like most people say no, but they are spiritual. Mm-hmm. And these are all kind of this is the byproduct of this new age that we're in, this Aeon of Horus. So yeah, I mean, Crowley was successful in ushering this new age. Most of us don't realize it, and right. Kind of like the cat's out of the bag already. So I don't know.
Yeah, you can't get the cat back in the bag now. Yeah.
Right. So for those tuning in, if you're not familiar with the primary gods of Egyptian mythology, so that's what we're speaking about: Horus, Ra, Osiris, Isis, Set, mm-hmm. and Apep. Is it Apep, the snake? Apep. Mm. So I'm curious because just recently, and we were just talking about we're talking about this. Curious if you saw X-Men: The Apocalypse?
No, I want to see it though. I actually like those movies.
Holy cannoli. Oh my gosh.
You saw it then, I'm guessing, yeah?
Well, the first 5 minutes, they're, and I don't want to ruin it for folks that haven't seen it, but I will tell you it takes place in the biggest pyramid, and they're inside there, and there are folks standing around the sarcophagus-like tables, and they're all of different kind of powers and race, and the main guy says, I am the Elohim, I am Ra, and basically was there to take down the structured society of what the Cabal did, but to reintroduce what it was that he meant from the beginning. Blew me the frig away. I was like, are you freaking kidding me right now? And it went from that to astral projection to mind manipulation, the whole MK Ultra. It went on and on and on. Anyhow, I recommend you seeing that because we were just talking about the Egyptians, and I could not believe the symbology in this movie. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's how they reveal it. They reveal it through the entertainment, it's all part of that predictive programming where it's mm-hmm. kind of easing us into the idea. Mm-hmm. Because, several years ago, you said you believed in aliens and UFOs and people laughed at you and thought you were crazy. And nowadays it's not so crazy. Right. Nowadays you've got NASA flat out telling us by the year 2025 they're going to make contact.
Well, it's good. We're already making contact. But that just opened up because Jim Nichols brought up NASA just a little bit ago. So let's ease right into that then. What you were talking about, Nichols.
Well, let's keep going here. Yeah. Gerard Butler just starred in this other movie that just came out. What was the name of it? Gods of Egypt. Crying out loud. I mean, this is like, talk about in your face. They just told you. Gerard Butler just starred in Gods of Egypt, which is the story of Horus. This big blockbuster science fiction or fantasy fiction movie. It's like, how blatant can you make it,
Right. They utilize the giants and the whole thing's about him with his eye getting ripped out in the pineal gland.
Yeah, that's true. It kind of tells you the whole story right there.
Yeah. I think the whole pineal gland thing has been hijacked, though. I think that whole idea From my point of view, it's actually the pineal gland was our uplink to universal consciousness. And the archons or whoever, the Elohim or the fallen angels, the archons, knew that. And they knew the only way that they could control the human population was to disrupt that link. And so they secretly know that the one eye is symbolic of the third eye, which is your direct consciousness link to the universe. And that you have to keep the people stupid and to keep them trapped here in 3D, you have to shut down the third eye. So to me, the Illuminati use of the third eye is that we control the third eye. And if you if you look at on the dollar bill, if you look at the third eye up on the top of the dollar pyramid there, it's like it's in a box. It's trapped. It's controlled. It's contained. It's like this, we control your third eye. So you can't be connected to God. So this to me is actually the subtext of why this third eye is used. And it's like, it's really laughing at the humanities. Look, we control your third eye. There's not a damn thing you can do about it. Ha ha ha.
So if you look at the history, so like the occultists, they believe in a different version of human history than we do, and they believe in the process of evolution and the idea that this pineal gland used to be external, kind of like those those fish that have the little lamp at the top of their head and
ding 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 ding, kind of like a quail.
yeah. But over time, it evolved and went more internal into our minds, and now it's kind of buried in there. But yeah, you could be right, Jim. That's a very interesting idea that this pineal gland is truly the access to this higher form of consciousness, and they do keep it trapped with all of the things that we know of in this material world. So
it's like to control. The only way to control the human race is to control the third eye, is to control the pineal gland, which is your uplink. And if you look at indigenous population, indigenous cultures around the world, you can go to South America and you can do an ayahuasca ceremony, which just completely blows your third eye open, and you suddenly see realities like, oh my God, it's like, you see people who've had these experiences see how completely shut down we are. And this is, I think, one of the reasons why there's been within the Illuminati Masonic cultures a deliberate effort to go out and destroy all the indigenous populations around the world, because they know the real secret.
Well, and I was reading about the calcite microcrystals that the pineal gland is consisting of, and that the complex texture structure of the microcrystals may lead to symmetry that breaks and possibly does piezoelectricity inside you, so inside your brain. So you got to remember that your pineal gland they are crystals.
And people claim that the fluoride is, and I don't know that that's true, but the fluoride kind of clogs up your
calcifies it.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, the fluoride, white sugar, flour, everything in our culture is designed to shut down the third eye. So, well, why would they want to do that? Well, to keep you focused in 3D.
Right, and that's
keep you controlled.
Yes, and that's why. So all the metals, remember all the fillings they put, old school fillings. The was it mercury, right?
Yes.
All that. Yeah. So when people are raising their vibrations by cleansing their systems and cleansing out their pineal gland through food and coriander extract. In fact, cilantro is one of the key things to break out the metals that is in your pineal gland and to flush that out, and absolutely remove fluoride. There's two types of fluoride. Right. So the bad fluoride.
And Miss Palermo.
What?
Don't you have something on one of your websites all about opening up?
I believe I did a video about how to clean your pineal gland.
So you might want to share with us how people can watch that video.
Oh, heaven's sakes. You can, Groovie Bean channel on YouTube.
Okay.
Go say hello if you like. But, hey. But hey, I'm talking to YouTube today. Thank you. Thank you for that.
That is interesting, though, that and I wrote about that in my first book, because that's what actually got me into some of the seedier realms of the conspiracy world, because I was very, I've always been interested in it, but I never truly subscribed fully into it until, maybe when I started the website, and before that a little bit. But years ago, I was studying a lot of nutrition and stuff, and started to make sense. I was okay, all of the stuff, the mainstream stuff that we're sold is all processed and full of genetically modified crap and all this weird stuff.
Poison.
And poison, exactly. And that's what it is. It's toxic. And over time, like the mainstream is starting to pick up on this idea now, and now people are going back to more whole foods. So it is interesting that we're, it demonstrates the whole idea of like, there's this control system and they're trying to control us, and there's always got to be some kind of grassroots movement to kind of buck it and say, look, this crap's making us sick and unhealthy, maybe don't eat it. And, we're going back to the natural stuff. And you I don't want to get too far off, but you mentioned the NASA thing. With the occult stuff, and Jack Parsons being a part of that, because he also tried to kind of widen that tear in the veil that Crowley did when Crowley brought in that spirit of lamb interdimensionally. And most of you guys already know Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard, the founder of Scientology. They did the Babylon workings, which was the same thing. They were widening this portal, and now we've got NASA, who uses all of these same ideas. They give us, all of the missions are named after Egyptian deities and pagan gods with names like, Apollo, Orion, Saturn, and the like. And
they have a new project called Osiris Rex.
That's right. Yeah.
Like, golly, Rex. Doesn't that sounds Egyptian to me? Call me crazy, but what?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And then I was watching a video the other day, they were talking a little bit about Operation Paperclip, which was the operation to get these Nazi scientists out of Germany in the 40s, and they brought them to America, and that's, like where we get Werner von Braun. He was kind of one of the main people in rocket science.
Right.
And he was, a German Nazi scientist that we brought over.
Totally Paperclip, yeah.
Yeah. And what was interesting on this show, they were talking about the Nazi using the Vril Society. This is another one of these kind of secret societies. And they were channeling ETs. And what they were doing is they were using these women to channel these extraterrestrial entities. And they would dictate how to build UFOs. Because, Hitler and all of those Nazis, they had these heavy-duty occult beliefs. And they believed in all these wild ideas of Atlantis and theosophy and all this stuff. And then, what do we get? We get American pilots seeing these UFOs, and then they call them the Foo Fighters.
Right. The Orbi guys.
Yeah, right.
So, I mean, all of this stuff, it's kind of all the same stuff. It's just everyone's on a different timeline.
Well, do you get the feeling that at some point all this stuff is connected?
Yeah, it's a pretty big tree to put your arm around. But,
now, when you were on your show with Richard Hoagland, did you discuss anything about Jack Parsons and JPL and Crowley?
No, we didn't really get into it much.
Because
I didn't make it too long before they kicked me off. So.
This is really interesting because, I've been doing UFO research for a long, long time. And Hoagland did a presentation, you can watch on YouTube. He did a presentation back in 1997 all about Jack Parsons, Aleister Crowley, JPL, and NASA.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't stumble on that until about 2 or 3 years ago. And I about fell out of my chair when I listened to it. I thought, oh my God, where have we been? It's like all this time, and here's Richard Hoagland is blowing a whistle on all this occult stuff that's at the tippy top of NASA. And there's a convergence at the top of NASA during the Apollo mission back in the late 60s, where you had Jack Parson and Aleister Crowley's black magicians at the top of NASA. You had Nazi SS secret society people at the top of NASA, and you had Freemasons. We had Freemasons right in the rockets, for crying out loud. So it's like there was a convergence of these three powerful secret societies at the very heart of NASA. And it's like, what is that all about? And then Hoagland takes it one step further and suggests, well, maybe there was a connection between the assassination of JFK, who was not a Freemason, and because he wanted to reveal the secrets of NASA to the Russians. Mm-hmm. So it's like it's a totally incredibly convoluted conspiracy idea here.
That's interesting.
And then where does Kubrick come in with NASA?
Oh boy.
Oh God, Yvonne.
Yeah.
Well,
okay, you let the cat out of the bag, Isaac. What do you have to share about that?
Oh, okay. So we want to talk Kubrick a little bit. The idea that Kubrick was exposed to all of this, and I gotta give my attributions to Jay Widener. He's the one that I listen to for most of this information.
He's great.
Yeah, he really is. The idea is that Kubrick was approached by NASA or the government or the Illuminati, whoever, and they paid him to film the fake moon landing.
Okay.
And in exchange, they gave him pretty much blank checks to do his movies. And, I guess you could infer that he was kind of okay with that arrangement at first. He did 2001: A Space Odyssey, which has just oodles of Illuminati occult symbolism in it, because it's all about Arthur C. Clarke's novel, where you've got this black kind of, more or less a cube. It's this black monolith.
Monolith, right. Yeah.
That represents the blackening in alchemy. It's the same idea that a man can find themselves becoming a god in their own right through occult teachings. So this man, I forget the astronaut's name off the top of my head. He makes contact with this embodiment of knowledge through the monolith. And originally in the book, he goes to Saturn, but for some reason, Kubrick says he couldn't
do the special effects for Saturn, so they had to settle for
which is so crazy to me, but whatever. That's the official story.
Yeah.
I mean, and anyways, he becomes the moon child, which is potentially the offspring of the Antichrist, depending on how you look at it. So anyway, so Kubrick, he did this film, and then, this is where you can kind of start interpreting different things. At that point, he decided he was going to expose the Illuminati because he didn't agree with what they were planning or whatever. So then you see different ideas showing up in different films. Like in A Clockwork Orange, we see what happens with MK Ultra mind control when Alex and his droogies start getting, involved with all of these various, sorry, I got something distracting me over here. They get, MK Ultra mind controlled. And then in The Shining, we see more of this idea of child abuse and pedophilia, which is something we can talk about in a little bit when we talk about Hollywood.
Yes, we'll do that. How about we do that after the break? Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay.
And then his last film was Eyes Wide Shut. And everyone knows Kubrick died shortly after the film was completed, and Warner Brothers pulled lots of this. I think it was Warner Brothers. They pulled a lot of the scenes because he exposed far too much during the satanic kind of sex magic ritual scenes in the mansion.
Kind of makes you wonder, was that a real party?
Well, it's interesting that Kubrick also, his follow-up to Eyes Wide Shut was to be AI.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, and then Spielberg completed it.
Yeah, and if you go back and look at 2001: A Space Odyssey, which is kind of a cautionary tale about transhumanism and artificial intelligence, and I think that had Kubrick lived long enough to actually film AI, I think it would have been a completely different movie than what Spielberg did. And I think Kubrick was also concerned that the Illuminati was creating this whole transhumanist agenda. And it was this, I suspect it would have been a warning, a very blatant warning about transhumanism. But of course he died before he had the chance to finish it.
Agreed. I think that's precisely what was going to happen, because that is the transhuman push is definitely the most recent. That I see the Illuminati pushing transhumanism at the same time pushing the alien contact agenda.
Absolutely.
It's shoved in our faces 24/7.
You got it.
Yeah, I mean, it's the insanity of it all. So listen up. Was this a good place to take a break for you, fellas?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it looks good for me.
Let's take, what would you like, a 5-minute break, would you like? Or
5 works for me.
5 works
Five's
for
good.
you? Okay, folks, so listen up. We are going to take a break. We're talking to Jim Nichols, UFO.net, and the one and the only Isaac Weishaupt from IlluminatiWatcher.com. So while we're taking this break, go ahead and check out their websites, folks, and we will be back in 5 minutes. Thank you. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey, welcome back, Haggy Shack Radio listeners. So happy to have you tuning in tonight. I am your host, Yvonne Palermo, a.k.a. Groovie Bean. I am joined tonight by my fellow Groovie Bean friend, Mr. Jim Nichols, UFO.net. He'll be speaking at MUFON next month, the 25th in Tempe, Arizona. And our special guest tonight is the one and only Isaac Weishaupt, because I had to say it that way because it's so much fun, from www.illuminatiwatcher.com. Don't forget to check out some of his published books, folks. Yeah, A Grand Unified Conspiracy Theory, The Illuminati, Ancient Aliens, and Pop Culture, Sacrifice, Magic Behind the Mic. We were just discussing Kubrick before we went into our little break. So let's jump right back into the show. Welcome back, fellas. Good to have you. Did you have a good break?
I feel pretty broken now. Yeah.
Woohoo! That's right. So we were just ending talking about Kubrick and talking about the Illuminati. We were talking about in the first hour the Egyptians and all that. Yes.
I got to jump in here.
He's jumping in. Jump.
Isaac, have you heard of the movie Wag the Dog?
Yes, I've heard of it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you know what it's about?
Vaguely. I don't think I've seen it.
Okay, if you get a chance, be sure and watch it, because it's kind of an homage to Stanley Kubrick, in that Dustin Hoffman plays this fantastic movie director who was approached to create this movie for the government to create a war or do something. It was some kind of propaganda bullshit. And so, Dustin Hoffman makes this movie for the government, but the catch was he could not reveal that he was the producer of it, just like Stanley Kubrick. And so the Dustin Hoffman movie director character gets so frustrated because he says, "Wait a minute, this was my best work, and I can't take credit for it." And so he decides, well, I'm just going to go public. I don't care what the government says. I'm going to tell the world that this is my movie. So, funny thing, the Dustin Hoffman character ends up getting killed.
Of course. Oh. There you have it.
Interesting.
So if you get a chance,
I'm looking at it here online. I have not seen this movie, so I'm definitely going to check it out.
Get a chance, watch Wag the Dog, because it's really homage to Stanley Kubrick.
Add it to the queue.
Yeah, I'm a huge De Niro fan. Looks like De Niro's in it. So.
Well,
catch that
and
for
we know
sure.
De Niro just came out with Vaxxed, and we know how that's going. But listen, let's go back into recent news. We know Hollywood, we know music, we know the movies, we know they're just forcing the symbology and these beliefs down our throats. People that are new to this have no clue. And we know recently this week, Elijah Wood came out speaking about the pedophiles in Hollywood. And then to back that up, what was his name? From Goonies, help me
Corey
out.
Feldman.
Corey Feldman backed up a statement this week as well, with which he had an interview prior to, but never really named names. Didn't he just recently name a few names? I believe he did.
Oh, did he? I didn't catch that.
Well, I'm not going to say it on air, but there was one. Yes.
Okay. All right.
But anyhow, the whole use, the puppet masters. Who are the puppet masters here, Isaac? What's going on? Tell us what you know. We know that this goes very deep as far as, if people are going, what we talked about earlier with Beyonce and her altar, Sasha Fierce. We know Katy Perry, Lil Wayne, Lady Gaga. We know Rihanna's got her altar. There's so many ways we could go into this. So I'm going to hand it over to you. Go for it.
Okay. So taking a look at this whole idea of the child abuse and the pedophilia that goes on in Hollywood, that should be enough to make most people's skin crawl, because the fact is that it happens. For example, Elijah Wood, I just happen to have, I've got this whole file of notes of things, so I happen to have this quote by him. Elijah Wood, as most of us know, is Frodo from Lord of the Rings. And he said, clearly something major was going on in Hollywood. It was all organized. There are a lot of vipers in this industry, people who have their own interest in mind. There is a darkness in the underbelly. If you can imagine it, it probably happened. And that's very telling, because that kind of supports a lot of these ideas, just like how we were going through the whole NASA thing. It's everything. You see the same thread in almost all of these sort of groups that are affiliated with these occult belief systems. And like we talked about Corey Feldman in the Goonies, right. He was also with Corey Haim.
That's right, Corey Haim.
The 80s Coreys. And Corey Haim didn't fare so well.
No.
Both Haim and Feldman allegedly were, molested as children when they were actors. And Haim went down the path that so many do, drugs and alcohol and all of that, and it got the best of them. And that's what they do to cope with this sort of abuse that they take.
Right.
And, Feldman talked about how these Hollywood types were lurking around like vultures.
Yeah.
And there's all of this evidence, overwhelming evidence, that in Hollywood, if you want to make it as an actor or a child actor, you have to be open to these sickos that have these connections.
Right.
And that's what we see with, I guess you don't want me to name names, but there's a certain Hollywood director who may or may not have filmed the X-Men movies. And he is featured in this documentary called An Open Secret. And then if you watch An Open Secret, you can see that there's a lot of truth behind this idea, because in it you find out that a lot of these parents that want their kids to be actors and celebrities and musicians, they kind of make that Faustian bargain with Hollywood, and they let their children go with these talent agents or whatever they call themselves. They go as far as to let their kids move in with these people.
Yes.
And they have interviews with a couple of these guys, and they say, look, I've been there, I lived in the house, and, they would do all this kind of crazy, like, sex parties where all these naked kids were hanging out in the hot tub.
And that would be like the beta programming, right?
Yeah, right, yes. It's all part of the dissociative identity programming.
Right.
But what concerned me the most, besides, the blatant grossness of it, like, cause I don't understand it, cause I don't have, that's not what I'm, my mind is programmed to be into. And I never really understood why do people prey on these little kids? Like, I don't really get it. And it's very telling, because in An Open Secret, the one boy who was abused, he he hides a recorder on himself, and he talks to the man who abused him. And the man who abused him talks about, he kind of defends his actions, and he talks about how, human beings are the only animals that put rules and restrictions on sex, and that, it's all just a bunch of BS. And, the thing that concerns me is that he tells us about how, human beings, we're just animals, but we put these rules on it that shouldn't be. We should be able to do what we want. And as we know, that's all the same stuff we're talking about. That's Crowleyism.
That's Aleister Crowley right there.
And that's what Crowley was into, was being able to kind of do whatever you want and break society's rules. And in the Church of Satan, one of the commandments is basically that man is just an animal. So then it all made sense to me, and I said, okay, so these pedophilia people that are into this stuff, they're just part of the whole thing. They're part of the darkness, embracing the dark side and the satanic version of things. And all of these ideas, they're the same thing that we see from these occultists, where Crowley and the Satanists and the like, where they want to destroy the world that we live in and get rid of all of these rules that they think restrict us as humans. They're typically referring to religion, and they want people to do whatever they feel like doing, as if we were no better than animals. And I disagree with that. Obviously, we have a different mind than the animals do. We have emotions. We're able to, cognitively use our mind to have sympathy for one another. But they seem to want to kind of go back in evolution to this world of chaos and anarchy and no restrictions. So that's what you get with these Hollywood types that are into this kind of weird stuff. It's all just kind of a fallout from the life of living like Crowley and the nihilists of you only live once attitudes.
Well, I think there's more to it than that. I think it has to do with life force energy. And one of the reasons when you get into the occult and you get into the understanding the archons and the extra dimensional entities that feed like predators on humans, is the life force energy. And the life force energy in children is much more powerful and much more fresh and clear and clean. So it's that's why the children are being preyed upon. And it's not so much a sex act, it's stealing their life force energy. And that's what you really have to factor in with all this stuff, that there's something that the people who are involved with this are actually sociopaths, psychopaths, who do not have the life force energy, so they have to feed on those humans that do have the life force energy to maintain themselves. And this is standard satanic ritual stuff. It's literally, it's not a religion. It's virtually a technology. It's a technology of stealing life force energy from humans who have an abundance of it, for people who have virtually no life force energy. I don't know if you ever saw the movie Dark City.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Classic movie, Dark City, where these entities that control the humans have no life force energy. And so, they're stealing the life force energy. And you see that same theme in the Matrix movie. The Matrix itself is literally creating itself from the life force energy of the people that they have entrapped within the system.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good thought there.
So it's not about morality. It's not about religion. It's about stealing life force energy. It's like feeding. It's like vampires.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Which is why we see all the connections to Draco and the Draco constellation and the dragon.
Absolutely.
And like you talked about the energy from this, and as we talked about Crowley earlier, he talked about using as sex as a release of energy, and he added some initiation rites to the Ordo Templi Orientis while he was a member, and they had to do with crazy stuff like masturbating on the sigil of a demon,
Right.
meditating upon the a phallus, and they would use this energy. They were kind of like, they thought they were sorcerers that could use this energy to make contact with these entities, these divine beings.
Exactly. And this is also the connection with the UFO abduction cases. So many of the cases were small children. They're small children who are abducted, and they're allegedly taken, on board the ships of the aliens, and then they too are sexually abused. Well, is this an abuse issue? Is this a DNA issue, or are they simply stealing life force energy?
I think it's all of the above.
Okay.
I think it's, I believe it's lineage DNA. It's stripping what the human essence is as a complete whole. It's absolutely feeding. It's a feed fest.
It's harvesting.
Absolutely.
This world is a cattle farm, and they harvest the cattle.
Right.
And that's what happened to Michael Jackson as well. We all know, Jermaine, I think it was Jermaine Jackson. I don't know, one of his brothers wrote a book that never found its way to being published, and in it, he talks about how Michael would get taken off to these secret meetings with a bunch of Hollywood elitists. And his father would drag him to these meetings. They would stay out all hours of the night, and they'd come home. And he said, Michael was like sick to the stomach. Like he was, he'd be like kind of incapacitated for a few days. And, Joe Jackson, I don't want to fly allegations, but he's said some questionable things since the passing of Michael that suggested that maybe, he was very cold-hearted about the whole thing. Like immediately after, on the first interview, they asked him about his son passing, and he segued it into some new Blu-ray technology him and another guy did to start a new business,
Unbelievable.
So
this is Michael's father?
Yes.
Okay. Well, he was allegedly abused the kids too, wasn't he?
Oh yeah.
It's some pretty wild stuff, but I mean, I think when you get involved with Hollywood and you maybe move up the ladder, I think people turn a blind eye to it and just kind of let it happen.
Well, hold the phone and shut the front door and lock it, because we're blasting this on air right now. So they can try to hide it. We are awake.
Well, it's interesting, Isaac. You brought up the point that you can't imagine these little kids walking into a Hollywood, office, and I'd like to be in your movie. It's like you can see it would be the parents that could see, we can make money with our kid here.
Yeah.
It's like, and there's agencies, I'm sure, in Hollywood that it's virtual, human slavery. It's human trafficking. It's like, we can make a lot of money using your kid in our movie. And so the parents would see this as a great way to make money on my kid, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And the children are innocently, thrown into this mess and have no say or no power over the issue, the situation at all. It's really tragic.
Yeah, I question if a lot of these parents I'd like to give them the benefit of the doubt and say that they just don't understand what's going on.
Yeah. I don't think they get it. I don't think they're aware, and they're not awake because, so IlluminatiWatcher.com, folks. We're talking to Isaac Weishaupt.
That's right.
Are with, I just like saying it.
And hey, Yvonne, let me, I try to throw this out there every time. This is my own stupidity of what happened here. So my real name is not Isaac Weishaupt.
Right.
But that is the name I go by.
Yes.
And where it came from, the origin of it is I had the website, Illuminati Watcher, and I kind of just went by that sort of alias for a long time. For maybe I say a long time. It might have been like a year or two. And then I got a call from a radio station that wanted to do an interview with me. And I said, holy crap, someone wants to interview me. So they were like, well, what's your name? And I was like, God, I don't want to say Illuminati Watcher. It makes it sound like I'm a superhero or something. So I picked a sort of a play on it with, I Isaac is Illuminati, and then Watcher Weishaupt, and then obviously Weishaupt is tied to the founder of the Illuminati.
Adam Weishaupt.
Adam Weishaupt, the German Bavarian Illuminati. So in hindsight, I could see how terribly, tragically stupid this pseudonym is, because at least 5 times a week I get people that ask me, are you related to Adam Weishaupt? Why should I believe you? You're disinformation.
Big red letters, man.
And I thought, good God, now I gotta explain it everywhere I go. And I want to just change it, but it's too late now.
We'll just draw a caricature of you with a cape on and your little Illuminati watcher sigil on top of your head. And
that's embellishing far too much.
But it's all good. Thank you for explaining that. I do want to go, but I do want to talk a little bit more about this before we jump ahead. Because I am I just, like I told you when I found your website and I really started diving in deep on IlluminatiWatcher.com, it woke me up in such a way to the core. And these dark occultists here who run this entertainment industry through fashion, with their sex kitten programming, through their videos, through the music videos here, and through the music industry. And I know we touched on Beyonce earlier. I would like to dive more deeper into the symbols that they're using, because we do have listeners that are new to this. So I think it's, from the, the leopard print that they use for the programming, but also in these music videos. It's like these celebrities, these singers are starting to use their videos to tell these stories. But my question is, are they doing it because it's a fad and there's some marketing person back there going, if we throw in a few triangles and a couple eyes and some, leopard clothing, we'll get more people paying attention to it thinking it's this? Or what are your thoughts on that? I just want to dive in here.
I think that's possible. I think it's possible that some of them may just be trying to ride a wave of controversy and get people to talk about them. And, but the truth is, if you look at, some of these symbols and some of these videos, like for instance, Rihanna, she's got a series of videos for her new album called Anti, I don't know how she pronounces it, but, and if you watch all of the music videos, you can see what it is her initiation into this occult belief system. Right? And when you start tearing it apart and looking at every single thing that she says in the videos, all the different ideas behind them, you'll see.
Can you give us an example for the people listening?
Yeah. So for example, it starts out where she's just a impressionable child, and it shows her kind of like in her bedroom, and eventually she kind of gets woken up by this guiding spirit, and this guiding spirit has a crown on that's covering its eyes.
Of course.
Now what this represents, I posit, is the crown and conquering child that Aleister Crowley talked about with this new age, the Aeon of Horus. Okay? So she gets woken up, she gets guided out by this crown and conquering child, and then the next scene, they show her with these twin pillars, black and white, Boaz and Jachin, which, as we talked about earlier, there's this polarity concept in occult circles where there's a dark side and a light side. Then the next video, she confronts this demon, and it's this very scary looking woman. And this demon is what Aleister Crowley termed as Coronzone, or H.P. Lovecraft called Cthulhu.
Right.
And what it is, it's this guardian of the dark side. It's this demon in the abyss. And Aleister Crowley and them, they talked about trying to approach this demonic entity. And Crowley wasn't the only one. It goes back to Edward Kelly and John Dee. Those were the Enochian magic founders. And anyways, what you had to do is you had to approach this demon and if you could go through the demon, you would be enlightened and be one step closer to godlike status. So in the video, Rihanna goes up to it and she pierces the veil. It's like this, it's kind of like the Stargate is how they depict it in the video. Mm-hmm. So she passes through and her dress goes from white to black. Mm. So, and she kind of looks at herself. She's looking at her hands. She's looking at her outfit. Mm-hmm. And what this is an alchemical transformation. Okay. She has started the process, which begins with what they call the blackening, because each initiate must go through the various stages of the metamorphoses, which is through the various colors, and it always starts with black. It's the blackening. It's getting in touch with the shadow side, the dark side. And at that point, it kind of gets darker. She's tattooing this big scary guy. She's tattooing his head. He's got a tattoo of a serpent and all this stuff. Right. But then, and it kind of goes on from there. If you watch some of the stuff, she inserts these still frames every now and then. Mm. And on one of them, it says, symbols, wear the mark of rebellion. Mm. Wear the mark of rebellion. So what is that telling us? It's trying to sell this new generation of kids on the idea that these symbols, this whole idea of the Illuminati, it's all trying to sell it as this rebellious nature of humanity, which just goes right back to the whole fallen angel idea and Lucifer. Right. But it's what we see with today's heroes in movies like Deadpool. Yes. He's the dark hero, right? Right. He's not a good guy, but you're rooting for him. Same with Dexter. He's a murderer, but you're rooting for him. Right. Mm-hmm. Like all of these things they kind of make, I don't want to say the devil, but they make the devil and evil seem like a good thing. Mm-hmm. And they're very good at it. Yeah, so they're using these symbols in all these videos, and the idea, it goes back to Carl Jung. There's this conscious ego, and then there's this shadow side that's below the surface. And these symbols are speaking to the shadow side, the subconscious. And this is where Carl Jung claimed the creative side existed, which is why you see all the artists doing it.
Yeah. Isaac, what was the name of that video that music video you just described?
So if you Google for Rihanna Anti, A-N-T-I, it's actually like a sequence of videos she released. I think that she called it the Anti-Diaries. Mm. And then Beyonce, she just did this pretty much the same thing with her Lemonade visual album. It's kind of the same idea. It's the same concept. She shows us, she jumps off the side of the building. She confronts death, which is always the first thing the initiate must do. Then she is underwater. She goes into a bathtub, and then she goes underwater, which is symbolic for going underground. And then she comes back up through. She talks about this whole thing of meditating. And she even talks about how the words she used are, she plugged her menses with pages of the Bible. Oh my God. I mean, what does that tell you? What that is, Like, wow. This is a girl who used to be a gospel singer. Right. And now she says stuff like that, and it's like.
No, it's another version of Katy Perry, huh?
Yes, exactly. They must get off on, speaking of that dark energy concept, they really get off on taking someone who had this kind of, Christian wholesome background and just twisting them all around.
Well, that is so Aleister Crowley also.
Yeah, right. Yeah, to pervert and invert everything that exists. So.
Right. You have to break out of all the rules and regulations. Unbelievable.
So you see, that's why we're seeing all these symbols, is because they're talking to the subconscious. They're turning people on to the idea of Lucifer being the true hero. They're implanting dark hero imagery, which is what we see in Suicide Squad, which is a movie coming out here in a couple months.
Right. Absolutely.
And honestly, it looks like the most promising movie of the year. It looks really interesting. I can't wait to see it. But the truth is, what they're going to do is sell us on the idea of rooting for the bad guy.
Yeah, that is very powerful.
Well, that and all the, the halftime at all the Super Bowls, you just can't wait to see them because it's going to be another occult ritual.
Right, yeah, like Janet Jackson, or not Janet Jackson, yeah, Janet and Justin when they showed us the Star of Ishtar on her nipple.
Oh, for crying out loud, yeah.
That was kind of the first one that started that whole trend.
Unbelievable.
First, Katy Perry's done some doozies too.
Yeah.
And so for the listeners too, when we're talking about symbols, it is so immensely flooded, from the 6 symbol over the eye, the one eye, the triangle symbol, when you hold your hands up in the horns of Baphomet, Miley Cyrus sticking her tongue out to the side with her one eye open, the X, the mark of the beast, right? I'm trying to tell the listeners some more about symbols here. Shattered glass.
Rainbows. Monarch butterflies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then that X one, that one's very interesting. I learned a lot of that from Freeman.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at that kind of stuff, you start to really question what's going on, because this idea of the X over top of the O is supposed to be, it's some kind of way of summoning the Antichrist, is what it boils down to.
Mm-hmm.
And you see it on Aleister Crowley's Star of Babylon. It's at the top of the Star of Babylon. And the idea is that they're going to call upon this sort of beast from the abyss, which is what we talked about earlier with Brianna and Corone Zone. They're gonna summon this beast, and they're gonna use it to bring hell on earth or something to that effect.
Right.
So they're gonna flood all of the consciousness with these symbols in order to kind of summon these beasts, and that's what we saw in what's that 80s movie with Eddie Murphy, Golden Child.
Yes.
I didn't see that one.
They've got this guru, this kid, I don't know, he's some kind of embodiment of holiness or something, and he's trapped in a cage, and the way they trap him in there is by surrounding him with symbols and negative energy.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same idea, and they want to evoke this. I don't know. Some people claim it's this Isis goddess. They want to evoke the Isis goddess with the X and the O.
Right. Well, here's one for you. Here, I'm throwing this out there because we're talking about music videos. Ironically, that place, which is known as the CERN, made a video with the whole. Have you seen the video for the CERN?
Yes, indeed.
Right, and that was essentially like a movie or a little music video documentary of the CERN, where they've got the dark versus the light, and they're doing this ritual, and that just I'm wondering, with all of these videos that the music industry is doing, what if this is all one gigantic freaking ritual to connect up with the CERN portal? Just a thought. What if it's one big freaking party they're doing here?
That's it's scary stuff, because that dance you talk about, there was a video they did.
Yes.
And in it, these, I don't know if they're physicists or workers or whatever they are.
The weirdest, let's just say though too, Isaac, the weirdest freaking video you would ever want to watch. Okay.
Yeah, it's weird as hell. And
what doing this. Is there? Do you have a link to this?
Yeah, I'll look it up. I'll look it up while Isaac's. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, they do this dance of destruction to Shiva in the video.
Oh, right. Mm-hmm.
Which wouldn't. I mean, that's bad enough, but this is CERN, who are talking about how they're punching black holes in space and they're going to tear the veil, and to me, it seems like they're just trying to rip the portal open that Aleister Crowley and then Jack Parsons were all trying to dabble with.
Absolutely.
And to make it even worse, out in front of CERN, there is a statue of Shiva.
Correct.
Yes.
And, that's this goddess of death and destruction.
Yeah, and it's like she's standing in front of a Stargate.
Yeah, you're correct. Yes.
Yeah.
It was the Dance of Destruction. For anybody listening, you can type in Dance of Destruction performed at CERN, which it was, by the way, and you will find all the videos about that.
God almighty.
It's weird stuff. And then, you know, like Shiva and a lot of Hinduism stuff, it always seems to tie into the occult beliefs when you look at all these like Eastern religions. I'm sure it doesn't mean all Hindus are evil, but there is a left-hand path within all of those Eastern religions. So
well, it's like Robert Oppenheimer, the guy that created the atomic bomb, who quoted from the Mahabharata, the Indian Vedas. Mm-hmm. Now I am become death, the creator of worlds, or the destroyer of worlds. I'm sorry.
Oh.
Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds. So you take that technology and then you couple that into the CERN technology, and it's like this is serious stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty terrifying.
Yeah. And what were you saying, Isaac, about
I was just
Shiva?
going to say, yeah, Kali and Shiva would mate and do this kind of release a certain amount of energy during tantric sex, which, again, ties into Crowley. He was into yoga and tantra and all this stuff and harnessing energy. So
Right. So once again, it's an energy issue. It's not a sex issue. It's an energy issue. And it's a kind of technology.
Well said, yes.
It's a kind of technology.
Yeah, I'm looking at the pictures of the Shiva right now. I had to look it up,
hey,
but yeah.
I got to throw this in because I just stumbled across this yesterday. It was Albert Pike, who wrote the book Morals and Dogma, who was one of the famous Satanists of America at the end of the Civil War, who was also, in his day, he was kind of another version of Aleister Crowley. But in his book, Morals and Dogma, he's suggesting that they wanted to unleash all this evil, this unbelievable evil into the world so as to provoke the second coming.
Wow.
So I was like, well, that's
a good find.
There's that's kind of coming at you from left field. But I've heard that before. It's like we want to unleash as much evil as we possibly can to provoke the coming of the Christ.
Albert Pike, they've got statues of him in D.C., right? That's the Confederate officer.
Are you kidding? The Scottish Freemason temple in Washington, D.C. is actually Albert Pike's mausoleum.
Oh, wow. So I'm going to dive in and just remind the listeners, we are tuning in to Haggy Shack Radio. I am your host, Yvonne Palermo, and we are talking to another groovy being, Jim Nichols from JimNicholsUFO.net. We'll be at MUFON next month in Tempe, Arizona on the 25th. And our special guest is Isaac Weishaupt.
It's getting more exaggerated every time.
By the end of the show, you won't even make out what the hell I'm saying. It's okay. But we love you. And W, you guys, IlluminatiWatcher.com. I want to remind you, Isaac has a fantastic website, film, music, TV, podcast, bio. Start here if you're a newbie to the naughty biscuits, and a shop and his books. So make sure you do check this out. I do want to remind you folks that Haggy Shack is a donation station. So if you like what you hear and you want more of it, show us that Babylonian love dove dovies. Click that donate link and say, hey, I want to help out those sheep that are sleeping, because we don't allow the sheep to sleep here at Haggy Shack. Now, I would like to know, because you two have brought it up a few times now, and I think we should go here in the next, we've got a half hour. Aliens, UFOs, and transhumanism. Ready? Go.
Like they.
Is that 10 minutes for each topic?
Whichever, we'll just, if you'd like, or if there's something else you would like to bring in.
No, that's. I think the aliens are the big push of the current Illuminati agenda.
And we all know the fear porn of the movies that we're being flooded with right now as well. And we got July 4th coming right up here with Independence Day Part 2.
That's right. Yeah.
So,
let me ask Isaac here real quick. Since you also mentioned transhumanism, did you know there's a connection between the book Frankenstein and Adam Weishaupt?
I did not.
Oh, goodness gracious me.
I've read that the author of Frankenstein, the name escapes me, Shelley, I think.
Mary Shelley.
Mary Shelley she got inspired by some castle in Germany, but that's about all I...
Now, there's another side to this story that suggests that
Alas.
the book Frankenstein, which is actually originally titled Or the Modern Prometheus, and who was Prometheus? He was the god that brought light down to planet Earth, to humans. He's like Lucifer, the modern Prometheus, the modern Lucifer. Well, anyway, the story is that Mary Shelley's husband, Percy Shelley, actually was a member of the original Illuminati movement in Bavaria.
No kidding.
Oh, and it gets even better. So, if you watch the movie, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, or read the book, you'll realize that Dr. Frankenstein, the guy who made the monster, was studying at the University of Ingolstadt.
Oh, okay.
Well, who else went to the University of Ingolstadt?
Adam
Weishaupt.
Okay.
Bingo.
Interesting.
Well, as the story goes, I'll try to give this a quick version. Percy Shelley became so horrified when she realized what Adam Weishaupt was going to create with the Illuminati that he broke from the group altogether. He would have nothing more to do with it, and he wrote the book Frankenstein as a cautionary tale about the insanity that Adam Weishaupt and the Illuminati were going to unleash on the planet. Which, if you really go back and look at the precepts of the Illuminati, it's a goal to create a new humanity. And it's like through politics and through controlling politics and money and banking and everything, to create an altogether new species that was atheistic and was virtually robotic, which segues beautifully into modern transhumanism.
Wow, yeah, I know that they had a lot of equal rights talk, which we see with the American Constitution and such.
Right. Well, it's like Adam Weishaupt's plan was to create a new human.
Right.
It's not just to affect politics. It was to create a new kind of humanity that had no religion, had no conscience, was completely atheistic, and would ultimately be just a robot machine for the bankers.
That's precisely what we get with the robotic transhuman.
Right. So Adam Weishaupt was also a creature of the Rothschild family. So it's like, how can we turn the whole human population into Frankenstein robots? Well, we'll do it politically. Well, that doesn't work. They tried it for over 100 years, and it just flat out doesn't work. So, now we have this technology. Now we can take the same idea and technologically turn the human race into Frankenstein robots, which is what Adam Weishaupt tried to do politically and couldn't do it.
That's what you heard in Robert Anton Wilson's Illuminatus trilogy. He talks about how this Illuminati group, they tried communism, that didn't work. They tried capitalism, that didn't work. Now they're going to try chaos and Discordianism and such like that. So. Yeah,
but at the end of the day, if Ray Kurzweil has his way with transhumanism, all our minds will be infused with nanotechnology, so we will actually be walking, talking robots.
Yes, indeed. Scary stuff. 2030 is when he says it's going to happen.
But a lot of people already are. I mean, we are, if you're looking at society, looking at their iPads, their phones and all that, it's funny, they're watching the television show The Walking Dead. Well, guess what, folks? You are The Walking Dead. You're not even looking at one another. You're not saying hello. You're letting your essence be sucked in by these techno puppeteers, and then at the same time, what are they doing? They're watching the movies, they're watching the music videos, they're watching what everybody's wearing, and it's frightening.
You go back to the music videos, you see all these beautiful girls dancing, parading, and hopping around out there, and they're nothing but programmed robots.
Well, let's talk
They
about
are
the ones
Frankensteins.
that, like Isaac, like on your website, and you do fantastic examples. Was it, Miley Cyrus, Katy Perry, Lady Gaga? They all present themselves as aliens. And who was the one, what's her name, where she's all painted in white, bald, and doing the 666 hand symbol? Oh, I can't. I know. Oh, what's her name?
White and bald, huh?
Presenting herself as androgynous, I guess. But
man, I don't know. That seems to be what they do now. So I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
Rose McGowan.
Rose McGowan.
And
that's
Rose
right.
McGowan was married to or related with
Marilyn Manson.
Marilyn Manson. Thank you.
Yeah, Rose McGowan in her RM486 video.
That's
She does all the stuff that we were talking about. They show her with the alchemical symbolism of the blackening. She's the black bird.
Aren't her eyes blackened out in the video?
Yeah,
too?
yeah. She looks
Yes,
like an
they are.
alien. She looks like a gray alien in it.
And
Yeah, there's a certain mixture of alien fetish with transhumanism fetish that we see in a lot of this stuff. Because like he's saying that it's a way of getting us to stay locked into this matrix that they're building for us, this virtual reality. And the Oculus Rift VR goggles came out, I think, last month.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first step. I mean, the fact of the matter is this stuff is going to be cool to play with, but it's only a matter of time before we become like in that movie Surrogates with Bruce Willis. I don't know if you guys seen that.
Frightening.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's frightening, but
Yes.
it's going to be true. I mean, you present people with a way of living out their fantasies in this world where they can't, you got sensory inputs, they can't tell the difference.
No. Wait, can you tell some folks listening, they may not understand what Oculus Rift is. I know what it is, but could you please share?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, it's okay.
They're virtual reality goggles, and it promises to bring a whole new generation of virtual reality to the world. And I've actually tried, it was kind of like a prototype of something that was supposed to be better than Oculus Rift.
Right.
I did a beta testing of these VR goggles for, what the heck is the place called? They have these grandiose plans of building these domes all over the world where you do these virtual reality kind of gaming experiences.
Right.
And it was pretty freaking cool because I've done virtual reality back in the 90s.
Yeah.
Where it was clunky and it was goofy, and then I did this thing, and I mean it was pretty cool. So I mean I can't imagine what it's going to be like in 10, 20 years when they really make it feel very believable to be living in this virtual world.
That's what Ray Kurzweil talks about, is that you'll be able to just plug your mind into a computer and you will actually be living and walking around in virtual reality world. And he says, you don't have to be the same person all the time. You can be different people in different worlds. And it's like, it's
weird stuff. It's gonna happen though.
At some point, what is the real anymore? And my question is, if you've ever seen the 13th Floor movie, it's like, well,
That's Jim Carrey, isn't it?
No, the 13th Floor. No, that's, are we living in a computer virtual reality right now?
Okay. 13th Floor. I'm going to have to look that one up.
That's a 90s movie.
Okay.
But it's, it's like this guy, he thinks he's living in the real world. And in this real world, they create a virtual world. And then he discovers that actually what he thought was the real world is also a virtual world.
Oh, that's okay.
So it's like, well, where is the real anymore?
Right.
So maybe we are already in a computerized virtual reality world.
So here's a question for you, and basing this on your fantastic website, Aliens, UFOs, and Transhumanism at www.illuminatiwatcher.com, how they are portraying, and I know they're using men as well now, that they are, but it's interesting how the women are being portrayed as these robots, and sexy robots at that. I'm wondering, these women that we're seeing in the music videos, are they clones? Are they their alters? Where's the real celebrity? Do you know?
Oh,
Isaac?
they're just blanks. I mean, it's like we saw with Britney Spears. They're just being used to push a certain image, a certain message, and they kind of, the theory is that they go through a mind control experiment of sorts with MK Ultra, and a lot of people that kind of scoff that idea. It's a fact that the CIA ran the MK Ultra mind control experiments from the 50s to the 70s.
Yep.
And the idea is that it since went underground, and they found a way to...
Now it's transhumanism.
What's that?
Now it's become transhumanism. It's come out of the closet, and it's called transhumanism.
Oh, yeah, that's a good observation, indeed. Mm-hmm. So I think these celebrities, because honestly, there's so many people that want to be singers, and there's so many people that can be singers. Like, you can't let every person be a famous singer, so you got to pick one that is willing to be subjected to some kind of abuse. I mean, what kind of abuse do you want to pick from? And Britney Spears, she had a breakdown. She shaved her head. Yep. She said she was tired of people plugging things into her. Then they carted her off to rehab, and then she started carving 666 into her arm or something like that.
Gosh, so sad.
Oh, that's another good point, that the programming starts to wear off after they hit about age 30.
Yeah, right. Because she started out very young.
Yes. That's what they start to crack up and commit suicide and all kind of weird stuff.
Or they get murdered.
Or they get murdered, right. They become loose cannons, like Michael Jackson, who I suspect was about ready to blow the whistle on all of it.
Yeah, that's true. There's plenty of people that talk about this kind of thing, like Dave Chappelle. He had a whole thing where the media tried to say that he lost his mind and went to Africa.
Yes.
And the reality of it was he understood or witnessed some things in the Hollywood scene, and was disturbed by it enough to turn down millions and millions of dollars. So he, good for him, stood by his convictions and just checked out.
Yes. And, oh my goodness, the depth of this is just, I don't really want to know, the deeper part of it, even, because we're just grazing the top. I mean, we know. But I would like to bring up Miley Cyrus.
Okay.
I mean, she's gone, and she's another one she was a super sweetie at the beginning, went through the whole Disney show, mind you, and we know Disney was a 33rd degree Scottish, right, Mason? Right? And so here in a lot of these, and with Miley Cyrus, and now, I know it was on your website too, she was dressed up as a green alien. Right? MTV will let me perform, so I'm hosting this year's in the VMAs. And the reason why I brought her up is it's interesting how these people are being used for Video Music Awards, what's the other ones? From the Grammys is different, but all their awards are, I want people aware that all of these award shows are ritual shows.
Indeed,
Take us in, Isaac.
So Miley Cyrus, she started out as Hannah Montana on Nickelodeon, or was it Disney? I don't know which one it was on. Anyways,
them,
and over the years, she's pushed the boundaries of what is, she used to be kind of wholesome, and she's slowly kind of gotten deeper and deeper into this thing, to the point where on her recent concert tour called Bangers, she's been telling her audience, which is mostly 12 to 16-year-old girls, she's telling them they should be kissing each other, they should be smoking weed. She's dancing on blow up penises. And the craziest thing about this whole thing is that, if you can laugh at any of this, is that they aired it on TV, and I recorded it and suffered through the whole thing. And I was watching it, and I thought, my God, and I'm not a prude. I watch some pretty horrific stuff. Like I grew up on horror movies, and I was into watching like the most disturbing things, Hostel, Saw movies, all that crap.
Sure.
So like I'm not easily offended at all. And I watched this stuff and I thought, my God, when I go to work tomorrow, because I work a 9-to-5 job and I work in an office, and I thought, man, when I go to work tomorrow, I'm going to hear people talking about how disgusting this Miley Cyrus concert was. And I went to work and I didn't hear anything. And I thought, oh, okay. So I Google it to try to see like if there's some kind of protest of Miley Cyrus, and no, everything's fine. I thought, geez Louise, I mean, this girl was she had like marijuana leaves everywhere, and like I said, blow up penises. And I was like, this is nuts. Like, so this is the new normal for us, right? Mm. And what the most recent thing I saw Miley Cyrus doing, and you could take this a couple directions. You could take it from the perspective of the occult and their attempt to form a new version of humanity where we are these androgynous beings with no gender. And like Jim said, we're kind of moving more towards a robotic sort of transhuman, neutral, nothing there kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Or, you can look at it from a more rational perspective that Miley Cyrus is trying to become the voice of the LGBT community. Mm-hmm. Because she is now talking about how she's pansexual.
Right.
And if you look at the origin of pansexuality, you can see that there are some pretty serious occult beliefs within it. I mean, the name Pan itself.
Yeah, what is pansexual? Please tell our listeners.
Pan is the Wiccan horned deity. Mm-hmm. And, you got pangender and then you got pansexual. And either one is basically saying, like, you're not committing to that male-female dichotomy. You're just there doing your thing, and you'll do, whoever or whatever you are attracted to, right? Mm-hmm. Which is, again, no judgment. I don't care. Fine, whatever. It's not, it's not for me, but whatever. But my concern is that she, for her whole life, the media was talking about these different guys she was dating. Now all of a sudden, within the last year, now she's like, oh, I'm into girls and guys, and I'm pansexual and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And the truth of the matter is, she's pushing the Baphomet image, which is that goat-headed statue that the Church of Satan erected in where was it, Kansas or Detroit or something. Mm-hmm. It's this androgynous being. It's this male with breasts.
Right.
So it's kind of an interesting subject. It's very taboo. It's potentially very offensive. There's people that have these actual things and have nothing to do with the occult, Mm-hmm. They're just trying to live their life, and that's what's going on with them, and that's fine.
Well, here's an example. We saw, what was her name? Kendall Jenner had a tattoo put on her ring finger of Baphomet.
Oh yeah, the horned deity, the Pan, the Baphomet.
Mm-hmm. No.
They're trying to popularize it and put it in pop culture and make it a little less scary.
Yep.
Well, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say one more note. What's interesting about all this is Genesis P. O'Ridge. This was a guy who was in this. He was in this process Church of the Final Judgment, which was trying to like unify the Christian church with Satan. They believe in this kind of heavy duty, kind of weird occult satanic stuff. And anyways, he turned himself into the first Pandrogyne, where he believed he merged himself with Lady J, this woman that he was with in a relationship. And unfortunately she passed away, and now he believes that he's absorbed her energy, and he now refers to himself as like they, because what's interesting is that Genesis actually reached out to me. Mm-hmm. And I didn't believe it was actually Genesis, so we've been talking for months on email, just periodically, kind of like a here and there. And Genesis is very very polite, and we're just trying to like feel each other out of what we each believe and why we believe it. And so it's kind of interesting that that I was writing about Genesis, and now I'm talking to Genesis, which
interesting.
I'm hoping to glean some knowledge from it, and because by all means, I'm not trying to put people down or say that what they believe is wrong, but I am trying to expose the idea that we're being led down a certain path. And I just want people to be fully aware of what's going on so that we don't find ourselves all of a sudden making contact with these demonic aliens and wondering how it happened.
Yeah, and then saying, sure, go ahead and put that RFID chip in. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Mm-hmm. We're winding down here. Jim, any last comments?
Yeah, one of the things that I think that kind of works along with the transhumanist agenda and the transgender agenda is I think they're also behind the scenes they're obsessed with zero population growth. And having been a baby boomer, I remember how it was right after World War II, when heterosexuality was absolutely encouraged, and because to make more babies, to make more soldiers, and so forth. And to build up our military. And nowadays, there's too many people. There's too many people. So the emphasis is now on recreational sex or homosexual activity, and to encourage non-reproductive sex.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it seems like if you read between the lines, it wouldn't surprise me if, over the next 10 years that the whole population gets sterilized, which the next big blockbuster Dan Brown movie, is going to be all about, or that, they make heterosexuality illegal.
Interesting.
And, so if you watch the trends, and, I just watched the latest version of Sleeping Beauty, which is called Maleficent, and with Angelina Jolie, and it wasn't the dashing prince that woke the Sleeping Beauty. It was Maleficent, the female Maleficent herself, who woke up the beautiful Sleeping Beauty from her sleep. And it's like, so that the whole theme of that movie is that men and heterosexuality are irrelevant now.
Mm-hmm. As I watch a chemtrail go by, because we're pre-recording and thinking of the grand purge that's going on here, unbelievable, right? Absolutely. But, fellas, it is time to wind it down. We are at just almost at our 2-hour mark, and I bet we could go another 2 hours easily. But, Isaac, do you have any last words to?
Yeah.
What are you working on?
I would say that, one final kind of warning for those of you that may not buy into some of this. I want you to watch for a lot of the dark hero programming, because that's what's going on right now. Okay. That's what we get with shows like Lucifer, Damien. We talked about Maleficent just a second ago. It's all about making the bad guys the theme, the focal point of the movie. Sympathizing for evil, basically. So as far as like my projects I'm working on, I've written several books, and I'm actually working on the audible version of Sacrifice Magic Behind the Mic. Okay. I'm hoping to get that out, hopefully by the end of June. I've got most of my books available right now on Audible, the audiobooks, that is. You can get everything on Amazon as well. Whatever people prefer. They're on IlluminatiWatcher.com.
Absolutely.
But what I would like is if people go to IlluminatiWatcher.com, I've got an email sign up and it's free. Okay. I don't do any weird stuff with my emails. I don't sell it to people. And what I've done is it took me a long time to do this. That's why I'm talking about it. Is if you sign up for the email list, you will get periodic articles that I've written over the past. That's, to me, were kind of like the best of. And what it'll do is it'll walk you through all these symbols we've been talking about. Explain why we're seeing it, where they're headed, how they're manipulating us. Sure. So please sign up for the free email newsletter, and I've also got a YouTube channel that's pretty popular.
And the name of your channel is?
If you Google YouTube, and I think I'm Illuminati Watcher 1, the number 1. The number 1, yeah.
O-N-E or the number?
The number.
The number,
yeah.
Sorry, okay. Okay.
And there's like 30 I think 37 or 38,000 subscribers on it. So it's like wildly popular.
Woohoo!
So I'm trying to invest some energy into that as
Fantastic.
well. So I'm spread thin here. So
yeah, well, I have to tell you again, I thank you, a million thank yous. Thank you for your service to society, for getting this information out there at www.illuminatiwatcher.com. I would love to have you back, and I can already tell you and Jim are going to be picking brains behind the scenes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Jim's got a great website. I looked through a lot of his Aleister Crowley stuff, and I was like, oh, yeah, this is great.
Absolutely.
Explains it very well.
Right, so very happy to connect you guys. And listen, Jim Nichols, UFO.net, folks. Don't forget, he's got wonderful video blogs, there, video documentaries there, and he will be at MUFON next month. Isaac Weishaupt! That's right. Went in. Again, thank you kindly. Folks, next week will be, where are we at? June, July? I have to look at my calendar. Oh my goodness. But I believe next week will be Gina E. Jones, Cardology Readings. So please do tune in. That is going to be an amazing show. Friends, there are two wolves, and they are always fighting. One is darkness and despair. The other is light and hope. Jim Nichols, which wolf wins?
Oh, the one I'm going to feed.
That's right. Whichever one you feed, listeners. So remember that. Thank you, Jim Nichols. Thank you, Isaac Weishaupt. Remember, friends, be safe, be kind, and be courageous. This is Groovie Bean signing out. See you next time, friends, every Friday night at 6 p.m. And thank you, Haggy Shack Radio and lovely Colleen Kelly. We are over and out. Good night, folks.
You've been listening to The Groovie Bean Show with Yvonne Palermo on Haggy Shack Radio at haggyshack.com. Simulcast to Wolf Spirit Radio.